Please everyone stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mrs. Subject.
You mean in the absence, okay. In the absence of Richard R. St. George, Village Attorney Samuel L. Drayle Jr. is hereby authorized to act as village clerk for the public hearing on local law number 2 of 2014 and to act as village clerk for this meeting.
Second.
Trustee McKay.
Yes.
Trustee Jones.
Yes.
Trustee Siri.
Yes.
Trustee Subject.
Yes.
Passed. We're going right into the public hearing. This being the time and place for the public hearing on the proposed local law number 2 of 2014 entitled "A Local Law to Prohibit the Use of Any Roof in a Manner that may imperil the safety or welfare of any person. Proof of publication shown." I'm going to open up the floor to the public portion. Would anyone like to address this public law tonight?
Yes, I would. Mary Starks, Liberty Street, Fredonia. I come before this board to express my opposition to this law. I don't feel that regulating what happens on private property is something that the village should be getting involved in. This should be something between the homeowners and their insurance companies. I have not been able to see a completed final draft of this law, as I did get a copy of the agenda this evening. But two things that I did want to point out in the law is that you mentioned a $500 fine. Nowhere in the law does it state who's going to get that fine. Are you talking about the fine going to the persons actually committing the offense if this law passes, or to the property owners?
It'll probably be the offenders.
Probably, or it will be, because it's
Well,
not
that's going to
written
be,
there.
it's going to go to the
This
court.
says
The court.
Any person, owner, or tenant violates the law. So it could be any one of the three who allows or permits that type of conduct is prohibited would be subject to a violation.
In the case of landlords, if this type of an act is going on and the landlord is not made aware of it, is the landlord going to be subject to that fine?
If he's not aware of it, he's out of town, I think we went over that, Brad, that we'd have to show he had some knowledge what was going on.
The other thing is that it was alluded to down in the workshop, the word balconies in there. What definition of balconies is being used?
Well, the ordinary definition you would find in the dictionary. We don't define every word, so I think we're looking at the typical balcony that I think this addresses balconies that are elevated so that it would be a danger if someone fell off the balcony.
According to Webster's Dictionary, a raised platform that is connected to the side of a building and surrounded by a low wall or railing constitutes a balcony. So you're saying that any structure that is on the side of a house, building, or otherwise, even a foot off the ground with a railing around it, is that going to be subject to this law?
It'd be a balcony, but it's not, the balcony itself isn't illegal. It's the conduct on the balcony that's illegal.
And who's going to make that determination exactly where that line is drawn?
Initially would be the police officer who sees the dangerous conduct, and we've outlined a couple items: partying, drinking, overcrowding, that sort of thing. And that initial determination would be made by the police officer.
I still feel that it's not right. This is something that should be between the homeowners, their tenants if they're landlords, and the insurance companies.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the public law?
Yes,
Go
I
right ahead.
did. James Linden, Castile Drive, Fredonia. I'm here to try to sway the trustees to vote no to this proposal of the rooftop law. I'm going to start with an interview concerning the proposed rooftop law by news correspondent Tina Zbach. And in that interview, Mayor Keefe says the proposed amendment to the Housing Standards Code is designed to enforce safety among residents who use any roof and encourage in certain types of behavior such as social gatherings. And then he goes on to, and I quote, "There's consumption of alcohol, partying, things that can be considered an imperiling situation." I mean, if somebody's on the roof, we are not going advise them to come off the roof. They have the right to be on the roof. Now, I find that interesting. I mean, so is the law going to be designed to collect fines, or is it actually going to be directed towards the safety? And also, is the reason with that statement, is that brings question of selective enforcement?
Well, I don't know the context of your statement there. I didn't hear it on the radio. But what I would say
Would you like to
is,
hear it? I have a recording of it if you'd like to.
no. Here's what I'm going to say to you. Can somebody be on a roof? Yes, people can be on a roof. They can be repairing a roof. They can be doing any number of things. The behavior we're looking at is dangerous situations created by people being on the roof. And that's where this law comes into play.
And the determination of that.
That would be the determination of the policeman that observes the behavior.
Okay, so when you say party and the consumption of alcohol, how would someone know, unless they enter the property, private property, the knowledge of the consumption of alcohol? And what is partying? Unless they're going to do something, alcohol breathalyzer test to know if they've been consuming alcohol. And what is partying? Some people believe partying is just having a good time.
And it may not even involve
There may be
partying.
no consumption of alcohol whatsoever.
Jim, let me point out an example. Recently, my wife walked by a house where kids were throwing a football on a roof. That's not safe activity. The police were called. The police asked the kids to come off the roof. They came off the roof. Was there a fine? No. Did they comply with the request? Yes, they did comply with the request. But we're going to stop the dangerous behavior.
Okay, and when you say, now let's talk about,
Jim, I've got a question for you.
yes.
You said selective enforcement. You ever speed before?
I'm sorry?
You ever speed in your car? You ever drive 35 and a 30? Pass up.
Speeding.
I have a question. Have you ever, let me answer my question. Have you ever speeded down the road?
Are you going to stand here and ask me to incriminate myself?
No, well, listen, we've all done it. I mean, we've all,
I mean, come on.
you've all done 35 and a 30, right?
People,
Yeah, but you're
as
talking
an
about
adult,
35 on a public
Excuse me,
road.
wait a second.
I'm sorry, I was talking.
Oh.
As an adult, some people make choices that are not appropriate, Joe.
Well, my point is that it's under the police's discretion. Have we ever gone past a police officer that we've
Now, that's
done a
not pub-
32
this
or
is on
30,
public
right?
street. We're talking private property.
I'm driving in my vehicle,
This
that's
is
my.
this is a whole, you can drive your vehicle on a public street within the law, and if you exceed the law, then it's very possible that you make it a ticket, okay?
But you said that's selective enforcement, correct?
That is on public streets. We're talking private property.
Okay, suppose a car,
What, can we stick to this? Because
Alright.
otherwise we could go around
This is a
all
whole
over.
different realm. We're talking private property. This is a residential piece of property. This is where people reside. This is not the public
Or
realm.
operate a business.
Oh,
Look,
please.
this is not the public realm, okay? This is private property, okay? And we're talking to adults here that have the right to choose, make choices upon their own accord. When it's an adult, they have the right to party, they have the right to consume alcohol on their private property, whether it be a porch or in their house or in their yard. Would I advise them to do it on a rooftop? No, it wouldn't make, but people make choices that aren't really necessarily the best interest in themselves, but it's not our part to tell them what they should do. As a matter of fact, when we're talking about gatherings in areas, maybe porches or those types of things, that actually is covered under the Freedom of Association, which is the fundamental right protected by the Constitution of the First and 14th Amendments. Now, we have zoning codes that take care of the order of our village, okay? how it's set up. We have residential, we have, which are R1 and R2, and we all even have a C1 that where residents are allowed to be on the second floor, I believe. Now, when addressing issues of safety, you have your building codes and fire safety, okay? Now, those address your safety issues, and it is on the physical presence of the properties and how the code's designed. It is not the person or the user that we're concerned with, and their behavior. It is the property. When you go into a property for a fire inspection, it is how the property has been set up for the safety of those users. Now, if you want to direct your approach to building code
Would you get to your point?
Okay, sure. Okay, so now, once again, I'm covering the point of the private individual and our rights and our freedoms, I should say, to associate with whoever we want, whether it be families or friends, and our own private properties, which are zoned for residential use. We have the right to, and the freedom to, without interruption or persecution of the law, how that may be.
Well, let me see if I got this straight then. You're asking us to turn our heads when we see a dangerous situation. That's your point. If it's on private property, turn our heads under a dangerous situation.
Now, the thing is when you're saying dangerous situation, it's not that, like I said, people make some choices, but you cannot deter, just based on what this law is addressed, you cannot determine those dangerous situations. And listen, you cannot. Behavior.
Right.
It's the
Let
behavior
me,
that this law is going against.
This is something I probably should have read from the beginning. I just got a letter from Fredonia State, where they're kind of outlining where this request is coming from. We're not the only community that's going through this. There's a number of communities across the country that are going through this. And the reason this is taking place is because people are dying from bad decision making, and a lot of the times it's in elevated positions, rooftops, balconies, falling over them, collapsing with them. Here's what the college wrote to me. I'm writing this letter in support of the new village ordinance prohibiting rooftop parties. As you know, this has been a topic of discussion for several years at the campus and community coalition meetings. In fact, we've had a student fall off a roof during Fred Fest several years ago, and we asked then if such an ordinance could be put in place. This ordinance would enable the village police to take prompt action for such rooftop violations, and in turn allow us to follow up with university action as well. It would also discourage renters from sponsoring parties and allowing students on rooftops. You recently attended a meeting with several hundred student leaders where we had discussions about ways to improve student behavior in the village. The students certainly agreed that Fred Fest weekend could be improved, and they understood the need for regulations regarding rooftops. Frankly, I can't imagine why anyone would oppose an ordinance designed to protect the safety of young people in our village. I'm sure the ordinance will allow residents to repair their roof. The police will certainly use some discretion in warning people when a reasonable justification of being on the roof is provided. However, I'm very much in support of finding individuals who allow parties and drinking on their rooftops. Please let me know if you have any additional questions about this. Sincerely, David E. Herman, Vice President of Student Affairs.
Okay, that's a great statement, and I appreciate the concern for people's safety. Okay, I want to make that perfectly clear. I'm not opposed to people's safety. What I am opposed to is the law directed towards the behavior of people, and in other words, the directed towards the user, not the use of the property. In other words, it's a residential property designed for housing or maybe multiple housing. And the building codes could direct or take care of the situation under safety standards and means to not infringe upon the means of egress should there be a fire. I mean, if people, once again, we're going to go back to people doing things that aren't all that smart. If a student's up there and a fire starts in their building, maybe in the back of the building, it's a fire. Means of egress is the only means of egress is out that front window onto that porch roof. They said, don't get on the porch roof, it's against the law, you're going to get a fine. And they burn.
Jim, that,
We can make assumptions all day long, okay?
yeah, can I just
Both
interrupt for one
sides.
second? You got, and then I think we need to probably stop this discussion because that's so far removed from the intent of this law. And when we talk, wait, please, just let me have my 5 seconds. When we talk about whether or not the police are going to interfere in people making bad choices, they can interfere when there is a danger to self or others. If there's a domestic violence situation, they can go into public residence. If there's a disorderly house where people are breaking things and carrying on, they can go into the public, the private residence. I'm sorry, private.
We should be addressing this under criminal law because what you're talking about is criminal acts.
Well, this is a,
This is not a criminal act. This is a private property act. It's a whole different legal scenario. And like I said, the village zoning laws and building codes do not allow for, in fact, the state recognizes that you cannot address the user of the as of right use. I want to make that clear. The as of right use of that zoned property. Okay? You can't address the user. You can address the use. And in that way, you can deal with if you know, like I said, with building codes and structure use and safety issues like fire extinguishers.
I'm
like in the roof
sure
and
there's
stuff
other
like that.
people who need to speak
Now,
also.
I'm almost done.
Okay.
And now, please, I'm almost finished. Thank you. Thank you. Now, when you mentioned this, the Fredonia, SUNY addressed this. They actually have in place the students' responsibilities, and which are under a code of conduct for their students. Okay, and it already addresses the interference with the health and safety or rights of others. Okay, it's all in this. So they have a way of dealing with it as the students go. And when you're talking about what goes on in the situations of the party and stuff, and you seem to reflect, and as a matter of fact, you asked the college to have input on it, because it sounds like you're actually directing it towards student activity, which once again isn't consistent with our Constitution. It has to be for all. I'm almost finished. Thank you. I know. Just bear with me. So just let me finish. So anyhow, they addressed that particularly, and how the conduct and how they should act in our community, and that type of thing, and how to handle the repercussions of such. Now, to conclude, I would find it would be unreasonable to impose conditions and excessive penalties on the behavior of the user of private property zoned for residential use. And I'm going to end with that. Thank you. If you have any more comments, please. Anything else?
The only comment I was going to make
Yeah.
is we can't put a zoning officer on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, whereas we do have police officers on board 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Well, that's unfortunate, but
So with it being a
the zoning-
violation with the law, public law, the police can take action. If you choose to turn your head when people are risking their lives under intoxication or whatever the situation is, You had that choice. I'm hoping this board doesn't make that same choice.
But we don't
But
shoot.
thank you. Would anyone else like to address the board? Yes, Michaelina? I'm reading mine. Okay. Okay.
A little less than a year ago, someone shot a video of a bunch of students standing on a porch roof down on Canada Street during the annual Fred Fest celebration. The video went viral on the internet. Fast forward to April 2014, SUNY administrators have had a lot of feedback from parents of prospective students, alumni, community residents, etc. with respect to the video. It's clear that the video has negatively impacted SUNY's public image and possibly present and future recruiting efforts. The village board, ever ready to lend a hand, has hastily crafted a local law that they would like to push through before this year's Fred Fest celebration, which prohibits the use of a roof in a manner that may imperil the safety or welfare of any person. As I have stated previously at both a Citizens Advisory Council meeting last summer that was open to the public and at a recent village board meeting, this is a matter to be handled by the property owner or the landlord. It's his or her responsibility to communicate, to make it crystal clear to any tenant, student or not, just what behaviors are acceptable or permissible on the property. Rooftop occupancy being a resounding no. People have been sunbathing on roofs in this community for 20 years that I know of, and probably longer, and it hasn't caused a stir. Pass a local law prohibiting it, and it will. I can't say that there never was or never will be an accident or an injury, but this is something that is taking place on private property, and that is where it should be dealt with. If the person shooting the video had excluded the rooftop shot, we probably wouldn't even be here. So let SUNY administrators and student leaders who are better equipped to mete out discipline to the student body do so.
And thank you, Michaelina. And I would hope that the landlords do take control of this situation so that we don't have to. Because everyone becomes a winner if we don't have to make an arrest. Would anyone else like to address the board? Yes,
Sure.
Jim.
I'm Jim Now, I'm the owner of the Alexville Brewing Company. A couple of points. Before I make them, I will say I absolutely positively understand the intent of the law that you're putting into place. And I can't be in more agreement that trying to control dangerous behavior, alcohol consumption, should be something that the village is concerned with. Obviously, it's something that the university is concerned with. I do have to agree with, it seems a little hasty and it seems a little not well written in the law, and I'd actually like to put to Mr. Dreo, reading that law as it stands right now, you're telling me that a portion of my livelihood can be interpreted as illegal under this law.
No, it only refers to conduct that can imperil human life. Sitting down.
It says that it may imperil. So
Sitting-
under.
Let me
some-
finish what
Sure.
let me finish what I'm saying. Sitting down, having dinner, and having a drink is not conduct that anybody would infer or define as imperiling a human life or public safety. So I don't think you have anything to worry about.
Subsection B of section 2 states presumption, any person using a roof, porch, or roof balcony and engaging in any of the activities in the manner set forth in 179-12E above shall be presumed to have imperiled the life of any person or caused injury to any person. That subsection includes and building in such a manner as to create a condition that may imperil the safety, life, or cause or injury to any person, such as, but not limited to, the use of the roof or porch. In this case, I don't care what you call roof, porch, patio, whatever that piece is that's attached to my building, of a building for partying, drinking, congregating for demonstrations or meetings in such a manner which creates a condition that may imperil the life of a person.
That's the important phrase.
That is so vague and interpretive. So to talk to Mr. Siri's comment about, have you ever gone 31 miles an hour in the village? I absolutely understand there has to be some discretion at some point. But what you're saying is a portion of my livelihood, which I've already been approved by the zoning board to allow to have that patio out there. I follow all the rules that have been put in place by that zoning board to do that. Furthermore, I have to follow every rule by the New York State Liquor Authority as far as drinking underage and having adequate applications and everything else like that. With the New York State Liquor Authority passing through that building, with the police passing through that building. I've already gone through all that, but under that interpretation, you're saying, well, a portion of my livelihood is based upon the discretion of your police officer at that point in time. And by no means do I mean to say that any of the police officers here are going to use any form of discretion that would jeopardize that. But the fact that you're taking something that I've gone through all these legal activities to create the environment to do this, and then you're saying, well, it's also at the discretion of the police officer at that point in time. So at what point does that individual say, okay, you can serve 2 drinks to that individual? A police officer could say you could serve 2 drinks to that individual, but at that point in time, now he's partying or now he's drank too much, and I'm going to use my discretion to not only fine that individual, but fine you as an owner. Way too vague, in my humble opinion.
I think when it says an activity which imperils the life of any person or creates a danger to a human being, that is what they're looking at, and that's spelled out very clearly in the law. It doesn't say sitting down, having a drink and having dinner, or being
So I
out
have
with
someone in there who does not sit down, who has 3 drinks and stands up the whole time at that point in time.
If it
At
doesn't-
what point does it become, you're putting that decision of what becomes perilous at the discretion of an individual at that point in time?
Now you have a code that you run your business by,
Absolutely.
right? And the code that you run your business by is, I would assume, going to be more strict than what we're looking for. Because you're not going to allow anybody to create a dangerous situation on your balcony. And that's what it's all about, is a dangerous situation. I know that, when I talked to you before, I wanted to make sure that it was worded in such a way that it was clearly connected to the, dangerous situation, life and limb, things like that. Our intention isn't to hurt your business. In fact, I'd like to help your business in every way we can. Our hope is that how do we, and I know Jim brought up, selective enforcement. How do we say that this balcony over here can do one thing and your balcony can do another thing? We can't. All we can do is say that you can't have dangerous situations taking place. That
I understand, Mr. Mayor, I just feel like as each and every one of you board members could realize what happens if some portion of your livelihood was based upon selective interpretation of a law, whether or not you could or could not do that. If you don't do that with under 21, it's not selective interpretation or anything else like that. There's certain laws where there's absolutely no selective interpretation. So what we're saying is a portion of my livelihood as a business owner was going through all these hoops with every entity in village, and with the village, the state, and everyone else like that, now becomes open to the selective interpretation of something that's clearly stated in the law, that drinking could be one of those things. And that is, I'm not here to lie. It's Bread Fest weekend. I do sell alcohol to people who have been carded as legal and monitored, and we do every attempt we do not to overserve those individuals. But under someone's interpretation of that law, that could be illegal, and I could be fined $500. I don't think any one of you board members being put in a situation like that would feel comfortable. I
Well,
can't
for you-
reiterate that.
for you to
I
be
understand the
fined-
support with the idea of what the intent of the law is, and I absolutely agree with it.
Well,
But I
let me
think it goes
let
a
the
little too far.
chief, talk to you. Because
If anybody else wanted to get up to speak, I didn't want to cut them off, but I just
Right.
wanted to stress some issues that I've heard tonight that are important. One is I congratulate you for taking this issue on. I know it's a complicated issue, and I know that time is of the essence. We deal with situations where we use discretion every single day of the week. That is the nature of police work. As a matter of fact, when discretion is removed from the law, it creates shock and awe in our profession. When domestic violence laws came through and they were mandatory arrest issues, police officers were scratching their head because it removed discretion from their ability to perform the functions of their job. 99% of the job we perform is performed utilizing police discretion. We are certainly not running around beating people with batons, tasing people. I can tell you, I haven't looked at the numbers, but I would bet you we've made less than 20 arrests for loud music in the village this year. All right, we use discretion all day, every single day. Not painting everyone with a single paintbrush, but we have a disproportionate number of individuals that categorized from 26 to 18 who are practicing high-risk behaviors because that's the time of the life they're in. Right? And their judgment sometimes becomes impaired, and they need a little help to make the right decision. And this is a tool to help us create a safe environment for this community. We are not going to start arresting people for abandoning a house that's on fire by a roof. We are not going to start arresting people for having dinner up on a balcony of a restaurant. And it's gives me pause to think that these things are even being brought up as examples, because it's simply not how law enforcement performs the functions of their jobs throughout this country in every community. All right, this is just simply a tool to help us protect the young people in this community. And I say young people not to pick one party against another party, but that is the preponderance of the individuals that we deal with, and provide them with a safe environment. Of course we're going to give them a warning and ask them to get down before we impose an arrest. You know why? Because that's what we do in virtually all instances, like loud parties and such. And I would tell Jim, you know what? You do practice this type of law enforcement within your profession every single day. When an individual gets to a certain point of intoxication, you're forced to make a decision as a business owner or a worker at a business. Am I to a position now where I need to stop serving this person? All right? The same logic would apply. If you got an individual upstairs who's climbing over the railing of your establishment, that's crossing the line. There's no question in my mind you're going to address that issue. I don't need a law. The law is not intended for you. The law is intended for the people who are putting themselves in harm's way. It's just a tool for us to prevent a tragedy. And this, I think that we're overthinking and overanalyzing. I also want to tell you that laws, when they're created, are further defined by case law. Every single law that's out there is further defined by the cases that are disposed of based on that law. So, yeah, we write a law. And you know what? There are going to be times when a judge is going to say, police, Mr. Policeman, you've made the wrong arrest here. It doesn't fall within the parameters of what we think is a life-threatening situation. And so case law further defines laws as they are written. In addition to that, all of these laws, and I can give you examples, such as a noise ordinance, they're fluid. We will define this and massage this as the years go by to make sure that we're not violating anybody's ability to perform a business in a profitable way that's safe to the community. So, you know, I just want to bring everybody back into kind of a consciousness of what really the intent of this law is, and just remind you of that and encourage you to give me a tool to keep this community safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Can I just add one more thing?
Well said.
You know, and then I'll leave it at that. I guess I don't understand the inclusion of the property owner as opposed to the individual. Why are we tagging on the property owner? Because not even just for my business, obviously I'm trying to do whatever I can to discourage this behavior.
Right.
But even the absentee landlord, stopping short of, if it said promoting that behavior, if I was promoting something like that, but I guess I don't understand if we have a law that's on the books that says that behavior is not acceptable, and we're going to enforce it on the individual who is performing that behavior, I probably wouldn't be here. If I had somebody who was drinking, et cetera, and endangering their life or someone else's life, absolutely. Absolutely, I would agree there should be some sort of repercussion or a law in place and everything else like that. But what you're saying with this statement is you're blanketing the owners, saying, you know, even if you are providing some of these things, that then this individual makes a stupid choice and decides to endanger his life. My bouncer turns his back, whatever. We start getting into a judgment call where clearly I'm allowing that behavior, but this individual does this. I punish the individual who's performing this behavior, not furthermore, as it goes to the landlords, or the individuals on the non-commercial property, if you're, punish them if they're doing that behavior as the individual doing that behavior. Don't punish them as the individual who has that personal property. That's just my thought, and it's also a way to address the situation and obviously alleviate my concerns as well too.
But I think that is addressed in here somewhere.
Well, it says no owner or tenant of any premise or any other person shall permit, allow, or use the roof or porch
Right.
of a balcony.
Permit or allow, the use, or do you allow the use of your balcony for dangerous situations?
Some people would say drinking on a balcony is at some level or another dangerous. Yes,
Well-
that's open to the interpretation.
But do you allow,
I do allow people to drink on my balcony.
right, do
That's
you
not
allow
a
the
legal
dangerous
concern.
activities? The person climbing over your balcony, the person that's, taking the risk of walking on the railings, the person that's throwing the beer bottles into the parking lot. You,
I also, just very quickly, I want to point out something in addition that I overlooked. We can't get landlords to come to the locations of these events as they're occurring. I've been the chief of police in the village of Fredonia for 15 years. I can tell you, I don't have fingers and toes to count the number of times we've called landlords and said, you have this situation occurring, we'd like you to come here and observe it. And they have told me, if they're breaking the law, deal with it, I'm not coming out. And I'm not kidding you when I tell you, in 15 years, it's happened more times than I can count. So to sit in back and say it's the landlord's responsibility, the landlords don't take the responsibility. They simply refuse to take responsibility for their property. So I'm left with the unenviable task of performing the function that, yes, I agree, a landlord should come and do. But you know what? They won't. They won't. And they haven't repeatedly over a course of years. And I don't want to see another young person, get harmed, get crippled, or die because we've decided that it's a landlord's job when we all know they're not coming down anyhow. And that's not a shot in the face to the responsible landlords who did show up last Friday Fest weekend.
Right.
But I can count them on one hand, not using all my fingers.
I just have one question, couldn't the safety issues be addressed under building codes? Just like handicap accessibility or fire codes are addressed, could that be possible and enforceable by the law to deal with issues of accessibility to rooftops? Is it possible that that could be dealt with under building and safety codes to deal with the accessibility to rooftops?
I think we're micro
That would bring it down,
defining.
well, that would bring it right down to the basis of what we're talking about here.
Well, Jim, it is an amendment to the housing code.
Yes.
Well,
This is under
we're looking at it as a criminal act, where the law would have to make a decision to, whether or not that someone has had too much to drink. And once again, we're looking at the behavior of a person as opposed to the safety issues of the property. I just asked if it could be possible to enforce that. And I heard a statement that it wasn't feasible to pay a building inspector to take care of that. Well, you're gonna pay the police department to take care of that. Either one, if he can enforce the building codes, certainly it would be addressed. If he could, or if he could ask the building code enforcement officer to handle the issue if it wasn't in compliance with the safety issues.
It is a
midnight?
building code
At 2 in the
violation.
morning?
When we make that arrest, it's no different than the building code enforcement officer making the arrest and issuing an appearance ticket. It is a local ordinance violation. It is not a crime and it's not criminal. It's a housing code violation.
And what's the issue here? Why do we have to have another law? for
Because
it?
I'm here 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. No,
But it's
we're
going
creating
once-
a law and putting it under the housing code, and we're allowing the police
That's my
to
point.
enforce it.
That's my point, is if you said it's already a building code issue, but we're putting this under the building code, once again, you're putting a building code issue on the behavior of the user.
It's not a building code, we're talking about
It's
conduct.
safe, it's a safe,
We're
right,
talking
exactly,
about,
conduct.
we're talking about conduct.
And is,
So where
and
you
if-
place
and-
it doesn't really make
And
any
if the
difference.
conduct of the person is imperiling someone else's life, then it becomes an issue of criminal activity, possibly, just like if someone's to abuse another person. Then you may have the right to do so. But that's under a criminal code, that is not under a building code.
First of all, this is not a crime, it's a violation.
What are you trying to make it one, is what I'm saying.
No, it's not a crime, it's a violation, and there's a big distinction between a misdemeanor and a felony and a violation. But I think it's irrelevant where you put it, and what heading you put it, because it doesn't make any difference. You get to look at what the law says, and they're going after conduct that imperils human life.
Not to belabor it, front lawn parking, the police have it, if the police are allowed to enforce front lawn parking. It's a building code violation, but the police are allowed to enforce it. You know why? Because we're out in the middle of the night when they're parking on the front lawns. It's just a question of giving us the opportunity, we're here, we're
Well,
available.
then why are we even here then? If that's the case with this, I mean, if the building code says it's a rooftop, it's not a floor space, and why are we bringing in balconies and porches? Balcony is under the building code designed in a safe structure. It has the safety built into it.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Drew, too, doesn't it have an occupancy?
And it does have occupancy.
Doesn't it, each location, wouldn't it have an
I'm not
occupancy?
sure about balconies, whether there's a specific load for a balcony. I don't know if that's that specific.
Well, it's structurally designed under the building code for
But again, it's
for
not the
safety.
structure we're going after, it's the conduct which creates and imperils safety of people, or could create an injury or even a death. So it's not the structure itself, how many what the loading is. But this is not intended for someone having a restaurant, having dinner. It's where.
I thoroughly understand that aspect of it, and I don't foresee any.
And you run a great establishment. I go there, a lot of
I do
people
appreciate
here
it.
go there. You've got great beer.
Obviously, it's a concern because of the discretionary aspect of it. And the fact that depending upon the interpretation that you read,
As the chief
and
said.
I don't think anyone in this room has that intent,
No,
but in 5 years from now, what happens if nobody in this room are the people that are here, and then someone
Right.
takes this and chooses to use it another?
Then comes
What happens if a
the-
competitor of mine gets on, in some form or another and says, and pushes and says he's, perhaps he's endangering or something?
Don't you have a appeals process?
Is that
Don't you have an appeals process in the event?
in the event of a violation like
I
that?
mean, when you have in the event, that we're not here in 5 years,
Sure.
we can amend this in 5 years, if we're not here.
I guess I would respectfully ask then, if you're pushing this through, that at least the village take another look at it, or look at the wording of it as it relates to that.
We have for the last month and a half, Jim.
And it is a new law, and it will be reviewed as time goes by to see if there's any kinks or any glitches that need to be ironed out. With any new law, you do that.
And was there any precedent that was set from that the law was pulled from other areas or anything else like that?
No, we,
Was there a,
we're pretty much are trying to address a dangerous situation in the village of Fredonia. We weren't looking to any other
But
communities.
there are others, and unfortunately, they're usually college towns,
Mhm.
so, can we call it question?
And on behalf of the police chief, he brought in his baton tonight in favor of Dingus Day. Are there any other comments from the audience? Anyone else like to address? Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Landlord's failure to respond to a police request to do something about tenants' dangerous and/or illegal behavior, a violation? And if so, why isn't that being enforced? And if not, why not?
Good question. Yes.
There is a section in the local ordinance that allows us to hold a landlord responsible for illegal activity occurring on their property if they have prior knowledge and continued knowledge. It's difficult to enforce.
Right.
You can't have a loud party and then go arrest a landlord because there was a loud party at the house. It has to be a repeated course of conduct that they simply refuse to address. And I think the maximum fine on it is $50. What we do is we will send a letter, we have a form letter that we send to the landlord, making them aware of the fact that we've dealt with their property, and if for whatever the offense is, we outline it in the letter, and we send that to the landlord so that they can address it. Usually we're given some assurance that they're gonna look into the matter, but there are a lot of what would be referred to as affirmative defenses for the landlords to say, listen, you know what, I've told them that they can't do it, they continue to do it, you know, I'm doing the best I can do. It's a very difficult offense to charge.
Don't we have a progressive
I have a
fining
further
system?
question.
I'm sorry?
I have a further question.
Oh, sure, but I just wanted to ask the police chief, don't we have a progressive,
I don't know about that provision. I'd have to look. I'm not sure that that provision has a stepping up to hold the
This
property.
one here, Brandon?
No, the property
no,
owner.
the property,
For a property owner who permits continued offenses to occur on their property.
In the zoning, there is second, third offense.
So it does step up.
Yeah, I thought it did. I just wanted to
Mandates a
make
higher
sure.
fine.
Yeah, that is, I'm sorry.
And yes, sir. And sir, could you please
What's
introduce
the,
your... could
what's
you-
the amount of the fine for the violation for the rooftop violation? 500?
Not to exceed 500. Not to exceed 500.
500.
Is that per
And yet the landlord's fine starts at $50.
Well,
And that's why you can't get anybody, especially absentee landlords, for instance, in Hamburg and Buffalo and so on, to respond to this, because what do they care? The chief is correct. But if you put some teeth in it and made the landlords responsible for rooftop behavior, and they knew that it was gonna cost them big if they didn't control it, and by the way, I know a lot of landlords here in the village have very specific sections in their lease agreements having to do with behavior on the part of their tenants, and they make it stick. Now, everybody should be held to those standards. And if you put some teeth in whatever the law is, and the chief or his assistants calls an uncaring landlord in Hamburg and says, you better get down here and control this. Well, it's inconvenient for me right now. You better get here because you're getting a $500 citation to start if you don't. And the next one will be $1,000. And put some teeth in this, and maybe some of this erratic behavior will disappear, including roof behavior. And you're putting a bandage on a problem here, and you could solve it other ways without another layer of law. It's that simple.
when you get an out-of-town person, a landlord, it's difficult. Let me tell you.
I heard that one before too. Well, we can't do anything, he's in Hamburg.
It happens to be
Oh,
true.
really?
Happens to be true.
Mhm. So I get caught for speeding on the thruway, and the guy says, I can't do anything because you live in Fredonia and you're in Hamburg now.
Well, he catches him.
Baloney.
Well, he catches him speeding. So he's subject to arrest right on the spot.
And I just want to make one
You
further
could put some
comment.
teeth in there.
I agree.
And give the chief the ammunition he needs to put a stop to this stuff.
I think we need to know too, that this isn't the first year that this has happened, that we're suddenly responding to it. It's been more than 1 year, go on and on. We can all remember back 5, 6 years ago when it really seemed to blossom as an event in itself. So I just wanted to
Well,
say that. I just
If
want to
the
say that.
mayor and the people who run this village had it, he got it all, this wouldn't have happened starting 6 years ago. They'd have told the president at the time, we're not gonna stand for it, and hold your Fred Fest on the campus.
They
And then
did.
maybe we'll save a lot of overtime stuff, and maybe we'll be able to reinstate the library fund.
Well, you can't lock anybody onto a campus either.
No, we
So-
can't,
so
but you
then-
can
and-
stop a sanctioned event that becomes a village-wide event, you can stop that.
it becomes a village-wide event.
It is.
I know. I'm saying that we have to support our local businesses. Landlords are businesses. Our restaurants are businesses. Everything that's a business in this community, we need to support. Students are good customers. And usually, we're looking at 5% of any situation of people that are creating a problem. And sometimes we deal with that 5%. We work very closely with the college. We're making good headway with the college. We're not looking to fight with the college. We're not looking to fight with landlords. We're looking to have a community that's safe for students. And I would like to get the students down here shopping more. I would like to get them more involved in our community. But, you know,
You can get more involved by coming by on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday morning on my street and cleaning up the mess after Fred Fest. That's how you can get them involved.
We've got a
Well,
group of students who are
yeah,
gonna do
that's
that. Hey.
Rubbish, they don't.
Yep, it's starting somewhere. We're gonna have that.
okay, anyone else like to address the board? Okay, Mr. Siri, resolutions.
Where notice of this meeting is given in the Board of Trustees of the news media and required by law, now therefore be it resolved that a special meeting of the Board of Trustees be held at this time and place to consider any business that may come before this board.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, passed. Trustee subject.
Aye.
Trustee Siri.
Aye.
Trustee Jones.
Aye.
Trustee McKay.
Aye.
Okay, passed. Okay,
It was just notice be given to the Board of Trustees, therefore be resolved special meeting. Number one.
and now we're going into the resolutions part of it. And it's Mr. Siri.
Public portion first, now. Just in
That,
case.
that was the public portion.
No, that was the regular meeting. Public hearing. That was the public hearing.
Oh, public portion. Oh, okay. Would anyone like to address anything else
Just in
at this
case.
time?
Did everything better?
Any other issues that anyone would like to discuss? Seeing no one. Resolutions.
Thank you. Whereas the Board of Trustees of the Village of Fredonia was duly called and held on this 21st day of April 2014, a public hearing on proposed local law number 2 of 2014 of the Village of Fredonia entitled A, Local Law to Prohibit the Use of Any Roof in a Manner that May Imperil the Safety or Welfare of Any Person, and whereas due proof of publication of said public proposed local law in the Observer was presented to this board, and whereas said proposed local law number 2 of 2014 was laid upon the desk of the members of the Board of Trustees of the Village of Fredonia at least 7 calendar days prior to this date, and whereas the board approves a change in proposed local law number 2 of 2014, in which adds the following phrase to end the first sentence of section 179-12E, in such a manner that creates a condition which imperil the life of any person or cause injury to any person. This and any other corrections to the proposed local law are considered clarifications, not required any further public hearing. And whereas the Board of Trustees are, after due deliberation, believes that the proposed local law will promote the safety and welfare of residents in the village and desires to enact the said proposed local law, now therefore be enacted that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Fredonia as follows. Section 1, the local law shall entitle A, local law to prohibit the use of any roof in a manner that may imperil the safety or welfare of any person. Section 2, Part 1 of Chapter 179 of the Code of the Village of Fredonia enacted by the Village Ordinance on January 26, 1970 is hereby amended to add subsection 179-12E to section 179-12 entitled Prohibited Use of Space to read as follows. Section 179-12E. The proposed of this section is prohibit the use of any roof, porch, roof, or balcony of any building in such a manner as to create a condition that may imperil the safety, life, or cause injury to any person, such as but not limited to using the roof or porch or balcony of a building for partying, drinking, congregating, for demonstration of meeting in such a manner which creates a condition which may imperil the life of any person or cause injury to any person. A, no owner, tenant, or premises of any other person shall use, permit, or allow the use of roof or porch, roof, or balcony of a building in a manner prohibited by section 179-12E above, notwithstanding any inconsistent provision of chapter. The Fredonia Police are hereby authorized to enforce the provision of this section. The section shall apply to any dwelling, garage, or any building used for a business. A violation of subsection shall constitute a violation punishable by a fine not to exceed $500. B, presumption. Any person using a roof, porch roof, or balcony and engaging in any of activities in a manner set forth in section 179-12E above shall be presumed to have imperiled the life of any person or caused injury to any person. Section 3. This local law shall take effect immediately upon filing the local law which in Secretary of State of the State of New York. Be resolved that the village clerk is hereby authorized to file the local law with the Secretary of State of the State of New York as required by law, and be further resolved that the village clerk is hereby authorized to cause the notice of an act of the local law to be published in the Observer. Upon a roll call vote, the following votes were cast to wit.
You need to, wait, you need a
A
second.
second.
Okay. Is there any discussion on this public law at this point? Seeing none, Trustee Siri.
Yes.
Trustee Subject.
Yes.
Trustee Jones.
Yes.
Trustee McKay.
Before I vote, I would just like to say that I completely agree with the intent of this law. I think that it's needed in some form. I would like to see some changes in wording, and I hope that'll come about by case law, but I vote no.
Is it adopted?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, just majority vote then. Okay, so it's 3 yes and 1 no. And 1 absent. Okay, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. And thank you all for your input. It was certainly appreciated. Okay. Mrs. Jones? You're up.
Oh, no further business. I make a motion that we adjourn.
Before we do, we have the special meeting on Thursday at noon.
Yes.
Oh, that's right.
Yes.
Special meeting on Thursday at noon to discuss the village budget, the trustees' budget.
And to accept it. right?
Approve the bill.
Approve
Yes,
it or
approve it.
not, whatever.
Can I ask why it's not at a regular meeting on the next Monday instead of a special meeting where it can be a little easier for the general public? Because during the noon hours, the general public, most of us are working.
Well, I think there's some of us that will be missing at that next Monday's meeting, so.
In order to get a supermajority.
Right.
Oh, I saw that.
So if you would allow.
Done that in the past, voted on.
We have done that in the
I
past.
just had a question.
Yeah, we've done that in the past. We've changed it. We would never had it.
For what purpose?
Did I have a second?
Oh, second, how's that?
All in, roll call vote. Trustee Subject.
Aye.
Trustee Siri.
Yes.
Trustee Jones.
Yes.
Trustee McKay.
Yes.
We are adjourned.